What's up, everybody? After a short break, Mark and I are back, and today we're going to be breaking down our power rankings from the pre-draft process. So before we go into the draft, we're looking at all 32 teams. We're going to be ranking them, seeing who's number 1, who's number 32, and then we'll probably do another episode after the draft doing the same thing, seeing how things changed, who moved up and who moved down. So, Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, still locked in the house as we all are, but doing the best I can given the circumstances. So no complaints, really.
Yep. Same thing we've been doing for like the last 3.5 weeks, last 3 or 4 weeks, pretty much.
Yes, sir.
But all right, so let's get into this. We got number 32, Mark. Who do you think is the lowest ranked team right now before the draft?
This was a tough one to pick for me, but I had to go Jacksonville here. I think they traded away a lot of key pieces in the offseason. You look at Calais Campbell is gone, AJ Boye is gone, even Nick Foles they traded, who didn't really contribute for them last year, but I'm biased as the Eagles fan here. But I think they're in a full rebuild mode. And I expect a tank season out of them, they have 2 first-round picks and a good amount of picks in this draft. But I still don't expect them to be very good. So I'm going to go Jacksonville at 32.
Yeah, I also have Jacksonville at 32. And for relatively the same reasons. I mean, we talked about this. I could see them trading Leonard Fournette before the end of the season. So I could see them really start to take everything apart. And Yannick Ngakoue, who they franchise tagged, he's already made it clear he doesn't want to be there. So I'm assuming he's not going to be suiting up for them next year. So I think they're definitely at the bottom rung. And there's a group of teams that are ranked right there towards the bottom, like maybe 4 or 5 teams will all have in the same category. 31 I have is the Washington Redskins. And I have them there because I don't trust Dwayne Haskins. I don't really like Dwayne Haskins, what I saw from him in the first year. I think he's a very bad quarterback. I think Kyle Allen will probably actually beat him out at some point for the starting job. Terry McLaurin's their top receiver, but he's good, but he's not great. They don't really have a running back right now outside of Adrian Peterson, and even then he's however many years old. He's in his mid-30s. He's good past his prime. Defensively, they have some good defensive pieces, but their secondary is not that great. It's mainly their defensive front. So I have a lot of issues with the Redskins.
I agree. I don't have them at 31. At 31, I have Carolina, actually, which might come as a surprise. But you look at they had a lot of departures this offseason. Cam Newton is no longer on the team. Luke Kuechly retired. Greg Olsen went and signed elsewhere. And they have a new coach who has a 7-year contract, and that screams to me that they're 100% looking to rebuild as well. I do like Teddy Bridgewater. I like the signing. I think he'll be a good fit, but I don't think he's not like a Tom Brady-esque type of guy. You look at Tampa Bay, you kind of plug him in, and he's the savior for that team. I don't see that happening there for Carolina, so I see them at 31 for me.
See, I'm going to piggyback off that. I have them at 30. So you and I so far are pretty close together. But yeah. I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think their biggest – well, obviously their best asset is Christian McCaffrey, and they have DJ Moore, and they have Brian Burns and Shaq Thompson. So they have some players on the defensive side of the ball, some players on the offensive side of the ball. But I just don't see – it's not a complete unit. I mean, it's not a complete group of guys. The offensive line's really shabby. And there's just too many holes right now. I just don't see this being a cohesive unit that's going to work well next year.
Right. And again, you hit all the points that I hit. So 100%. And then I have at 30, I have Washington for the same reasons. They have a new coach in Ron Rivera, bringing a new system to that team. You mentioned Dwayne Haskins. I look at him as very unproven. I think he's still raw. Can he be good? Maybe, but we didn't see that last season. And then you look at what Trent Williams says about that organization for the past couple of years. I just think they're a dumpster fire, and I don't think it's gotten any better. Maybe you bring that veteran leadership. Ron Rivera, I think, is a good leader and a good coach, so maybe it turns around. But until we see it, I'm going to throw them at the bottom of the league there for sure.
Well, yeah, it's also the Dan Schneider culture really is an issue there for that team. But moving on to 29, who do I have at 29? I have the Cincinnati Bengals.
I also have the Cincinnati Bengals at 29.
All right, so we're going step for step here, Mark. But I have them at 29, but I do like some of the things they have on their team right now. They have Andy Dalton, who I think is a little bit underrated. He gets a lot of crap for playing on a really bad team with a questionable coaching staff. But they've got Dalton still. They've got AJ Green, John Ross, and Tyler Boyd. So that's pretty decent for 3 receivers. You got Jonah Williams coming back, and he missed all of last year. So he's going to be a plug and start left tackle for them. Joe Mixon is very good. And they made some decent signings in free agency. So this is not a very bad team, but I think if you do well in the draft, this could be a top 20 team versus a team that's kind of battling for the lower spots in the league right now.
Right, I agree with you. You look at we're doing our kind of pre-draft, like you mentioned, our pre-draft power rankings. If the Bengals have a good draft, I could see them being one of. I have a couple teams that could go from a worst to first type of mentality there. Not literally first, but they could do big jumps in these power rankings depending on the draft. I like what they did in free agency with DJ Reader and Trey Waynes as well. So I think they can be good contributors for them. They're a decent team. It just depends how they draft. So we'll see.
I think coaching could also play a role here in the very near future.
That too.
Who do you have at 28?
28, I have the Giants. I had them a little bit higher at first, but then I remember they hired a new coach who was the special teams coordinator for the New England Patriots. And while the Patriots are a historic franchise as of late, I don't see him working out very well for the Giants. Daniel Jones is still very unproven. He had a decent rookie year. He has some issues he has to work on. You look at the fumbles, turnovers in general. I like the free agency moves. They brought in, I think, Bradbury from Carolina, the cornerback there. I like him a lot, but a lot is still up in the air for the Giants. Saquon I know he had the injury last year, but he kind of had a down year, some would say. So it's up in the air for the Giants. We'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, I put the Giants in a similar area as Carolina almost, where they have some pieces, but it's just not a cohesive team right now.
Right.
And for my 28th spot, I have the Detroit Lions. Now, I do think this is a talented team. I like Matt Stafford. I think he is highly underrated. I think he's a very good quarterback. I love Kenny Galladay. I think Kerryon Johnson and Bo Scarborough are both good running backs when they're healthy. My issue is I don't like Matt Patricia as a head coach. I think he's a good defensive coordinator. I don't think he's a good head coach. And just hear some of the things that people like Damon Harrison and Darius Slay have said about him in the organization in the last couple of years. I mean, they really don't like him. So
yeah,
I don't think this is a very good team defensively right now. I think no matter what the offense does, the defense is never going to hold up. And so that's why I have them down at 28 right now. But then going on to 27, that's where I have the New York Giants. And like I said, I think they are in a similar spot to Carolina where they got some pieces, but you just don't have a cohesive team right now.
Right, I agree with you. For the reasons for Detroit, their defense obviously is a big question mark, and the leadership of Matt Patricia as the head coach. I do like what they have on offense when they're healthy, like you said. I love Matt Stafford when he's healthy. I think he's just been in a really crappy situation his entire career. I love him. I love Kerryon Johnson when he's healthy, and then you look at Kenny Galladay and the wide receiver core. I think they're good enough, so I have them a little bit higher on my list here. At 27 for me, I have Miami. They made a lot of splashy moves in free agency, but I there's the old saying, the higher you go, the more likely you are to crash. So we'll see what happens with them. I like the Byron Jones signing. I like Jordan Howard. They stole him from us in Philly. But we'll just have to see how it plays out. They have 3 first-round draft picks too. They have a lot of picks in this draft. But until we see how it plays out on the field, I'm not willing to rank them any higher than that.
Yeah, I think Miami's a team that it really comes down to the draft. They have a solid foundation from free agency, but the draft is going to be what really puts them over the top if they get there. My number 20, we're on 26 now. My number 26 is the New York Jets. Now, I like Sam Darnold. I know he missed a lot of games last year and had trouble kind of adjusting. I do like Sam Darnold still. But they don't really have a receiving core. I mean, Rashad Perriman and Jamison Crowder are the best receivers. Their offensive line, they upgraded it this offseason, but it's still a bunch of guys who are kind of questionable. Someone like George Fant from Seattle was an upgrade for them, which really tells you how pathetic their offensive line was to begin with.
Yeah.
I think Le'Veon Bell can bounce back. I don't think he's done yet. I think Bell will have a very good year this year, but it's still a team that has a lot of holes. I really don't like Adam Gase as a head coach. I think the team is poorly coached. I could just see him underachieving or being like a 6 to 8 win team for the next 3 or 4 years, really.
Yeah, the solid points. I have to disagree with you here for this slide. At 26, I have Denver. I like Drew Lock a lot, and I like that young, in quotes, young core they have there. You look at Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, those running backs that they have, and then I like their wide receivers. I think they need to add one. I think they will add one in this draft. But until then, I'm going to rank them pretty low just because they're very unproven. But I mean, when you have Von Miller on defense, it's hard to sleep on.
I have them a little bit higher actually. I'm pretty high on the Denver Broncos. I'm actually pretty high in that whole division right now. I like that. I like that group of teams.
AFC West has a lot of potential this year. Yes, for sure.
Well, speaking of we're not the AFC West yet. At number 25 for me, I have the Dolphins here. Okay. I do like what they've done. I think Brian Flores is a pretty good head coach. I think Devontae Parker's emergence was very big for them last year. You talked about Jordan Howard. I think Fitzpatrick had a very good year. They've addressed the offensive line a couple of times as well, and they also took some free agents for the defensive line and linebacking core, and of course Byron Jones is a huge boost. So I think they added a lot of good players. I still think they're some solid pieces away. I think there's some like all pro players away from being a very good team, but I think 25 is a pretty good spot for them right now.
Yeah, I have them at my 27, and then at my 25, I have Detroit for the same reasons you did. I do like their offense when healthy, but their defense is still questionable, and the leadership of Matt Patricia is also still questionable. So we've hit all the points with the Lions already.
Kenny Galladay is a beast when he's healthy. I love Kenny Galladay a lot. He's he's incredible. But moving on now to number 24, we were talking about this just a while ago, but the Raiders. The Raiders are a team that I have ranked lowest in the AFC West, mainly because I think John Gruden is a little bit he's been questionable in some of his decision-making right now. I think I question some of the leadership and the long-term planning skills the Raiders have put into place. But right now, they don't really have a great receiving core. The offensive line's 50-50, really. I love what they do at tight ends with Jason Witten and Darren Waller. That's a good 1-2 for them. I love Josh Jacobs. I think Derek Carr's underrated, but I think on the defensive side of the ball, you have the most issues. The secondary, even the linebacking core and defensive line need improvements. And like I said, I just don't trust the coaching and long-term planning in Oakland right now. Or I guess Las Vegas at this point.
Yeah, Las Vegas. I have them ranked a little bit, actually significantly higher on my list, but we'll get there. At my 24, I have Chicago. And we talked about this on our last stream. I think Chicago is a team in denial. I think they're rebuilding, and they just don't want to admit it. They're going to have a QB competition between Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky, two questionable guys. Inconsistency there. I do like Allen Robinson. I think he's a very underrated wide receiver, and if he has a very good quarterback that can throw to him, I think he's very good. But there's too many question marks in Chicago right now for me. They do still have Khalil Mack on the anchor in that defense, but I look at the roster and I don't see a very good team here yet. So we'll see. Very
I think Chicago's got some individual players, so I just don't think they have the foundation to really build around what they have, which really stinks. Because like you got a generational talent like Khalil Mack, but you just can't put a whole winning team around him. It kind of sucks. But we've seen it happen with our players before in the past.
Right.
But at 23, now moving on, I've got the Atlanta Falcons. I think this is a team that's in a very similar situation to Chicago in the sense that they've got some pieces like Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Also, Alex Mack at center. They've brought in guys like Dante Fowler Jr., who's pretty good. They brought in Todd Gurley, who I think could have a bounce back year. I don't think he's done yet. But I think this is a team that really isn't going to peak. I think they hit their peak when they went to the Super Bowl, and I think they're going down now. I think they're trying to slow themselves, and they don't think it's going to work. I think Dan Quinn ultimately gets fired before the end of this coming season.
Yeah, Atlanta might be looking at a rebuild soon, depending on how the season goes. Matt Ryan's getting up there in age, and you mentioned they did bring some pieces in. They have Todd Gurley now, but he's a question mark even when he's healthy at this point in his career. I have them a little bit higher as well. At 23, I put the Jets, and I think I'm regretting it because the biggest point you made was Adam Gase is a very questionable coach. I do like what the Jets did, kind of upgrading their offensive line for them. I still love Sam Darnold. I think he can be a good quarterback. I think they definitely need receiver help. So when we'll see what happens in this draft. But I think the Jets can make a jump as well from my 23.
I think the Jets can also make a jump because that division, though. I look at that division right now. We don't really know who's going to win that. I think people are assuming it's going to be Buffalo, but with New England kind of stepping down, it'll be very interesting to see how that all works out.
Right.
And moving on to number 22. 22, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, obviously, this stems a lot from getting rid of David Johnson. You bring in Kenyon Drake, and now you also bring in DeAndre Hopkins. So the offense is looking a lot better. They still have a lot of issues on the offensive line, but now your receiving core is Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and a bunch of guys you just drafted last year like Andy Isabella and Keyshawn Johnson. So you got some guys over there now who can really play. And on defense, you've got some players. You got Chandler Jones, who's very good. You got Patrick Pearson coming back. He didn't miss part of last year because of suspension, but now he's going to be back full time. You got Budda Baker. So he has some pieces. I still think this team's about a year or two away from competing, though.
Yeah, those are all solid points. I have them higher simply because of what they did in free agency there and the big trade for DeAndre Hopkins. At my 22, I have the Cleveland Browns. I mean, they have a lot of talent on that roster, but they're looking at another new head coach. I like what they did in the offseason. They got Jack Conklin and Austin Hooper as well. But again, with a new head coach, we'll have to see what happens. We'll see what this does for Baker Mayfield's career, because everyone loves to point out that he's on his fourth offensive coordinator in 3 years. So,
well, let me see. As a Steelers fan, I can point out that the Browns are the eternal dumpster fire and doormat of our division. So, yes. I mean, I don't think it matters what they do. I mean, they're supposed to be the great team last year, and it didn't happen. So, I think at this point, I mean, unless you get some really good leadership in there, which they might have now, but if you don't do that, you're pretty much screwed for them. That's their biggest issue, is that they don't have that leadership anymore. But they never have had it. But my number 21, this is a team that was very highly ranked a couple of years ago, but now it's fallen off. I think will continue to fall off, is the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this is a team that I think is sliding. You look at guys like Gurley. Gurley's not there anymore. He was a huge part of their team. Now they don't really have a top running back. And Jared Goff, without the running game, Jared Goff really struggles. They traded away Brandon Cooks, who was injured last year. The offensive line's in shambles pretty much. They still have, obviously, Aaron Donald and a fairly good defensive front. But I just don't view it as the team it once was. I don't think they're going to be the team that can go out and put up 45 points per game and still have some dynamic playmakers. Losing guys like Corey Littleton in free agency and Eric Weddle to retirement was huge, I think. And I think it will tear down this team.
Yeah, wow, that's kind of the first curveball that I've seen us throw here, because I've agreed with a lot of your list up until this point. But I think the Rams are still solid. I think, I don't see them as a playoff team, maybe a fringe playoff team like they kind of were last year. They were in the middle of the pack. They still have talent on that roster, but I think they're going to continue to fall. That I agree with you as the years go on, because you look at their cap situation, they got to start figuring that out, and then how that's going to affect them down the line.
Maybe not just look at their division. Look at the other 3 teams they have to play against. I mean, it's going to be pretty tough for them this year.
Yeah, that too. We're at 21, right? My 21, I have the Raiders for the same reasons you said. I do like Derek Carr a lot. I think he's underrated, and I think that I see them definitely drafting a wide receiver, no question. It's going to be one of those top 2 guys, whether it's going to be Judy or CeeDee Lamb, but we're pre-draft right now. So until that happens, I see them as a below average team there at number 21 for me.
All right, who you got at number 20?
20, I have the Cardinals a little bit higher than you did, just because I really like that DeAndre Hopkins trade. Kyler Murray, I think, is going to take a big step forward this year, especially with a weapon like DeAndre Hopkins. He won Rookie of the Year, so the talent's there. I think they just have to build around him, which they look like they're definitely doing with the free agency move. So I like what the Cardinals doing. I'd love to see them take a bigger step this year to get them higher than number 20, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's just a waiting game for them, really. I think maybe one more year and they'll be there. But at number 20, I've got the Cleveland Browns, because they've added all this talent. And you look at them on paper, they should be a lot higher. But it's Cleveland. They've always found a way to kind of screw it up. So I have them at 20. I think on paper you would have them ranked much higher. If you went just based on past experiences, you would have them ranked much lower. I'm just going to kind of split the difference and leave them at 20 for now. But I'm really not expecting a lot from Cleveland this year. I just think at this point it's been too many times that we've talked them up and they've let us down. So I'm expecting Cleveland to go maybe win 6 or 7 games this year.
Yeah, I can realistically see that happening. It just depends what this new system brings for Baker Mayfield and that offense. But we'll see what happens.
Who's your number 19?
Me at 19, I have Atlanta. Kind of similar to where you – well, actually not really very similar. A little bit higher than where you put them. I've always liked Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, they call him. I love Julio Jones as well. I think Todd Gurley can be okay for them. Depends on his health and how they use him. And you mentioned they got Dante Fowler too. I think they're a team that kind of has a bunch of pieces all over the place, but we'll see how they are able to mesh together. I'd love to see them take a jump up again back to when they were a Super Bowl team. But I don't see them going that high. But maybe like a fringe playoff team I could see as their ceiling for this year.
Yeah, I'm about there with you too. I think they could be right around that area. 19, I have Chicago, because I still like what they have defensively, because they still have some very good pieces in Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller still there. They brought in Robert Quinn, Danny Trevathan's there, Khalil Mack's there. Hakeem Mix is coming back, so they've got some pieces defensively. They can still hold down the fort. I think Nick Foles will win that QB job, and he'll do better than what Mitchell Trubisky did. significantly better, I think. But I still believe this is a team that's probably on the downswing and not going to have a very long shelf life moving forward.
Right. That's solid points. We've brought that up before, but yeah, they're on the downswing regardless, unless they can fix that quarterback position and get it solidified there within the next couple of years.
Yeah. All right, Mark, on to 18. Who do you got?
18. Oh boy, this is a tough one for me. It pains me to do this, but I'm going to put the Chargers here. Just because they seem to really trust Tyrod Taylor. I don't. Even as a one-year rental, if they draft a quarterback, we'll see what happens. But I don't trust Tyrod Taylor at this point in his career to be a solid starting quarterback. I think he's a rental. So I don't see them having a great year. I love the pieces they have on offense with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Austin Eckler is a phenomenal running back. And that offensive line, they really bolstered in free agency, but it depends what, this team will only go as high as Tyrod Taylor can get them, and I don't see Tyrod Taylor getting them that high. So,
well, I'm going to stay in the division for my number 19 overall. I'm going to go with, 18, sorry. I'm going to stay in the division. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. This is a team that I really like because I really like Drew Lock. I am a fan of Drew Lock. I like what they've done this offseason. You add Melvin Gordon to a backfield that already has Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay. You bring in tight end Nick Van Nett. He's a good run-blocking tight end. You already have Troy Fumagalli who does the same thing. Noah Fant, the dynamic pass catcher. Offensive line, you added some guys like Graham Glasgow at center, so that's a little bit of a help. I think you still need to address wide receiver, but you've also brought in A.J. Bouye at cornerback. You brought back Justin Simmons. You get Jarrell Casey on defense. So you've added a lot of pieces now, and Bryce Callahan's coming back from IR at corner. So I think this is a team that's really on the upswing. And depending on Drew, it will depend on Drew Lock. It will all hinge on Drew Lock. But if he does well, I could see them winning 8 or 9 games.
Yeah, I do like Denver. I just think I see them as a team that will make a jump after the draft rather than before. They did lose Chris Harris in free agency, so they now have a little bit of need at cornerback. So we'll see what happens there for them. Okay, so we're on to 17. Yeah, 17 is where I have the Rams. I see them as still a pretty good team, but they're definitely going to be trending downward, as you mentioned. They're going to have to cut a lot of key guys or restructure contracts. They've got Jalen Ramsey coming up. Jared Goff signed that hefty contract a little over a year ago, I think it was. So they still have to pay Todd Gurley, even though they cut him. So they've got a lot of cap hits this year. And they're going to have a bunch for years to come if they want to keep those guys. Cooper Kupp is going to need a new contract. So I see them as trending downwards for sure. I have them about 17. I think they can still be decent this year, but this will be their ceiling for a while. They're going to enter a rebuild pretty soon. Yeah,
I think Sean McVay's system offensively won't work without a healthy Todd Gurley. So I think they're going to struggle a little bit on offense. At my number 17, I have the New England Patriots at 17 because I really think, they've got guys like they still have Stephon Gilmore. They still got Devin McCourty. They've got some guys left over, but they've also lost a lot of players. Lost some guys along the offensive line, some guys at linebacker along the defensive line, especially to teams within their own division. The Miami Dolphins picked up a couple of guys from their team. Detroit Lions went out. Matt Patricia went out and got a couple of Patriots. So you got some guys like that. I think Julian Edelman's on downswing. You don't have a quarterback right now. So, Jared Stidham's your guy. I think they will stick with Jared Stidham, but you don't really, let's be honest, Jared Stidham, you don't have a quarterback right now. So I have him at 17 based pretty much solely on Bill Belichick being the coach.
Yeah, I have them at my 16, just for the same reasons you listed. I think they still have a lot of solid defensive pieces, but you look at that offense, and it's a very big question mark for me. Quarterback, obviously, but even wide receiver, I think they need to get some playmakers at wide receiver. Julian Edelman can no longer be your number one option at his age. But yeah, we'll see what happens with New England.
Right, so you got them at 16. At 16, I have the Chargers. We talked about them earlier. Mm-hmm. I love what they've done offensively last couple of years and during free agency. They've got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams as your number 1, 2 receivers. You bring in Brian Bulaga. You trade for Trey Turner. So you've upgraded the offensive line. You bring back Hunter Henry. So it's a very good offense. I just don't know about Tyrod Taylor. Again, I'm with you. I don't think Tyrod Taylor is the long-term solution. Mm-hmm. I don't really know. He got replaced by Baker Mayfield last place he was. And he stepped down Philip Rivers all last year. So I don't know if you consider him a franchise quarterback at this point. I do like what they've done defensively as well, though. Going out and getting Chris Harris from Denver, I think that's a big upgrade. So now you get him and Casey Hayward playing together. You get Linval Joseph, also a defensive tackle from Minnesota. So you've got some really good pieces defensively. I just think, again, it comes down to Tyrod Taylor and what you can do with the quarterback position.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've always kind of liked the Chargers as like my low key team, so I'm rooting for them to do well. But again, they're gonna live and die by Tyrod Taylor this year, so we'll see how that goes for them. All right, that takes us to 15. 15, I have Houston, a significant drop off. They really surprised me with these trades and these signings in free agency here. I still do very much like Deshaun Watson, your Clemson boy there.
Yeah.
I think he's still a very good quarterback, but when your top option is now Will Fuller, or they traded for Brandon Cooks, but he's too injury prone. So you have two very injury prone wide receivers as your top two options, and an injury prone running back as your new starting running back. I just don't see how you could look at yourself and think you have a competitor there anymore, which is a shame because I really do. I like the Texans, but after this offseason, and we'll see what they do in the draft. They don't have a first round pick, which takes them out of the play for a lot of the talent here, but it's hard for me to put them any higher than this.
Yeah, you and I are on the same wavelength today. So I got Houston at 15 as well.
Yeah.
For basically every reason that you listed, I think the offensive line's terrible. I don't think you really have a reliable tight end as a pass catcher. I don't trust your running back game right now. J.J. Watt's been injury prone. That's really hurt you defensively. I don't trust the corners right now because it's Bradley Roby and Lonnie Johnson Jr., who are both guys kind of unproven a little bit. Linebacker, you basically need a third linebacker. You got two decent guys, but you need another one. And your interior defensive line took a hit when you lost DJ Reader. So to me, I think Houston's the team that's turning down. I don't trust Bill O'Brien as a head coach or a GM. And I think that reflects on the roster composition right now. It just isn't in place for a winning team. It's a winning team probably because it's Deshaun Watson, but it's not going to win that division, I don't think.
No. I'd have to agree with you there. And just to make a point of note here, Deshaun Watson is the favorite in Vegas for the betting odds to be the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots in 2020.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's kind of awesome, though. I mean,
we'll see what happens. That'd be wild, but I mean, I wouldn't doubt if Bill O'Brien would trade the only.
No, Bill O'Brien would be like, "Hey, Deshaun Watson, we're not going to do that. Bring Brian Hoyer back."
Yeah, they're a mess down there. Definitely trending downwards for sure.
Yeah, but that brings us to 14. At 14, I've got my favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wow. I think, yeah, it's rough because if Ben is what he was in 2018, I think Pittsburgh's probably a top 10 team. But if we don't know what Ben is, and Ben goes down a little bit this year, which I think he will, then I think the 14 to 18 range is probably better for Pittsburgh right now. I love their defense is incredible, but again, I just don't know offensively, some inconsistency along the offensive line. The skill players, running back, receiver, they're question marks. And again, Ben's a huge question mark as well.
Yeah, all solid points. But I do have them higher based on the sheer talent they have. And we talked about the Steelers privately the other day. At my 14, I have Indianapolis. I like the Colts a lot, but Phillip Rivers is 38 years old. I like T.Y. Hilton. I love that offensive line, and I like their linebacking core in Indianapolis. But we'll see what happens with them. I think if they have a solid draft, they can be another team that kind of takes a big jump upward. But they really need to solidify this quarterback position either this year in the draft or next year in the draft. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, I've got Indianapolis at 13, so one spot higher. I do like what they've done. They got DeForest Buckner. I think that's a huge boost in the interior defensive line. Justin Houston as a defensive end is a great player. You got Darius Leonard, a linebacker. Blake Hooker as a safety. Those are all good players. I just don't trust their corners right now. I don't trust their ability to cover players. Right. Their best players like Xavier Rhodes, who had a terrible season last year. So I don't trust their corners. The offensive line's tremendous. I just don't really know how much faith I have in Phillip Rivers. And again, they only really have one receiver in T.Y. Hilton. They don't really have another one right now. So I have Indianapolis at 13.
Yeah, all solid points. We're piggybacking off each other. At my 13, we bring in a new team that we might have some controversy on, but I put Minnesota here. I think they lost a lot of big pieces to their team in free agency. Trading Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills. They cut both of their starting corners in Trey Waynes and Xavier Rhodes. So they're trending downward for sure. I know they made it to the second round of the playoffs last year behind Kirk Cousins. And I do like Kirk Cousins. I think he's a decent, probably the best. They call them game managers, quarterbacks there. But I see them trending downward from where they were last year. So.
Yeah, I've got Minnesota a little bit higher. But I do have another team that's skirting downward at 12, and that is the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
Yeah, well, because here's the issue. There's been issues with Dak and the Cowboys front office to this point. So there's been some issues there. I didn't take that into account when I put them down here. They still have Dak, they still got Zeke, they still have got Mark Cooper, Michael Gallup. So they got some good players, but you lose Travis Frederick to retirement. I think that's huge for your offensive line because he was one of the best centers in the league. You lose Robert Quinn, so your second pass rusher is gone. You don't know how healthy Sean Lee and Leighton Vander Esch can be at linebacker. You lose Byron Jones. You basically don't have a corner right now. I mean, your best cornerback's like what, Anthony Brown at this point, so you don't really have a cornerback to cover anyone.
Yeah,
For me, I think. Also, I don't trust Mike McCarthy as a head coach right now. I haven't seen him coach in a little while, but I still don't trust him. So I have Dallas at 12.
Wow, interesting points. I put at 12. I had Pittsburgh because I think when Ben is back and he's healthy, I think they're a good team. I don't know if they could win that division with the way Baltimore's playing, but maybe teams start to figure Baltimore out. But with Pittsburgh, I looked at the numbers their wide receivers produced last year, and this was on your end. And then that was with Mason Rudolph playing quarterback. So once you get a legitimate NFL quarterback back in there, and like we said, if Ben stays healthy, I think they can be a pretty decent team. I think with the new playoff format, there's 7 teams from each conference now. I think last year, if they did that, I think the Steelers would have been that 7th playoff team in the AFC. So they were still competing even with when they had pretty bad injuries.
Mason Rudolph and Devlin Duck Hodges at quarterback.
Yeah. So if you could compete with those two and almost become that wild card team, then I think you stay healthy this year, add some pieces in the draft, and I think you'll be pretty solid.
Hey, preach, Mark. I'm hoping you're right there. But number 11, going up one spot, I got the Buffalo Bills. I know some people probably have them ranked a little higher. Their defense is very, very good, and they brought in Mario Addison, Carolina, to really boost their pass rush this year. Ed Oliver, I think, is going to be very good. They're bringing him back. Well, actually, they're bringing him back. He's his second year in the NFL now. I think he'll trend upwards. Tremaine Edmonds has been very good for them at linebacker. They're bringing Josh Norman as a complimentary corner to Tre'Davious White. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are both very good safeties. So you've got a very good defense. My issue with this team, I mean, you also have a pretty good receiving core as well, by the way. Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley. That's pretty good. My issue with this team is Josh Allen. I just do not trust Josh Allen in the clutch. If you need to win a game on a final drive of a game or a fourth quarter comeback, Josh Allen can't lead you to do it. He can't do it because he's not polished prospects as quarterback. He's just not that guy. He's not in the same class as Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, etc. He's not going to be that guy. So for me, I hold Buffalo back because I don't trust Josh Allen.
Yeah, I disagree with you here because I really like the Bills. I've been very high on Josh Allen since he entered the league. I knew he was going to be kind of a developmental quarterback, and I think he's taken the steps in the right direction. I like the Bills. I have them higher. At my 11, I have Tampa Bay just because I hate to go against the all playing God there and Tom Brady, but he's 42, 43 years old. So I don't, I think Tampa Bay will be good. But we'll see. It's hard to rank them right now. A lot of these teams, it's hard to rank until you see them on the field. Because on paper, you look at Tampa Bay, you're like, wow, this team should be a competitor for a Super Bowl ring. But we'll see what happens with Tampa. That's why I have them at 11.
So moving on to number 10. Who do you have number 10, Mark?
Here I have Dallas because I look at the sheer talent on that offense. And like you said, they lost Travis Frederick in the middle of their offensive line there. But I see them either drafting a center or they have the guy they have plugging in for him as of now on their depth chart is pretty decent. His name is escaping me, but he's not a terrible.
Yeah, Joe Looney.
Yeah, him. And then the defense is questionable. You said, like you mentioned, losing Robert Quinn as your second pass rusher there to DeMarcus Lawrence. And then your cornerback position is probably one of the worst in the leagues on paper right now. But I just think that offense is too talented for Mike McCarthy to be able to mess up. I like Mike McCarthy as a coach. I always liked him with the Packers. So I'm excited to see, as much as it pains me to say this, I'm excited to see what he does in Dallas there. So.
All right, so my number 10, I could pretty much switch my number 10, number 9, so I'm going to talk about both of them right here. My number 10 is Philadelphia, and my number 9 is Minnesota. I think you could switch either one of them. Yeah, you're shaking your head there, Mark. I think you could switch either one of them. I think the issue with Philadelphia is, and the draft will tell us a lot about both these teams, but the issue with Philadelphia is obviously wide receiver and health there. And also your backup cornerbacks behind Darius Slay. Are those guys going to be healthy as well? Because you have a bunch of injuries going through there.
That's true.
So those are my concerns about Philadelphia, even though you got a very strong offensive line and very strong defensive line. And I like Carson Wentz a lot. Carson Wentz is probably like a top 5, top 6 quarterback in the league. And then the other team I have, which I have right above them, the Minnesota Vikings. I like Minnesota. I like Dalvin Cook a lot. I like Kirk Cousins. I think they've got some good tight end depth. The offensive line is a little questionable. Still Adam Thielen. I really liked what they had defensively the last couple of years. I think maybe I haven't ranked too high because I'm still remembering what they had defensively before now. But now it's really kind of falling apart. They've got 2 good safeties in Anthony Harris and Harrison Smith, but they don't really have any coverage corners at all. So I could see switching Minnesota and Philadelphia at 10-9.
Yeah, kind of interchangeable there. That's fine for me for you to put the Eagles there. I guess I can let that one slide. My number 9 is Tennessee. Although they made it to the AFC Championship game last year and arguably got better in the offseason. They did lose Jack Conklin in free agency, but and I believe they traded Casey as well, their defensive tackle.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So they lost some key pieces, but they really trust Ryan Tannehill, and they have Derrick Henry back on the franchise tag for now. I think he'll sign a long-term deal eventually this season. But Tennessee is kind of another fringe team. They could be back in the AFC Championship game next year, or they could be back to being a middle-of-the-pack team. We'll see if it was just a fluke for them this season, but I'm going to put them at number 9 pretty confidently.
All right, who are you getting number 8?
8, I have Buffalo. I really like what Buffalo's doing. I like their defense is very solid. I think Josh Allen is going to continue trending upwards, getting Stephon Diggs into an already pretty decent wide receiver room. I think, and then they drafted a running back last year who's
Devin Singletary.
Singletary. I think he's going to be very good in his second year. So I see them taking a big step up in Buffalo.
All right, number eight, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because I think that offense is going to be so good with Brady. Think about it, James Winston; they were good when he threw 30 touchdowns, but 30 interceptions as well. So if you cut those interceptions in half, which Tom Brady will do easily, I think it makes you a lot better. And also, you got to look at the defense. The defense, besides the secondary, defense is very good. I mean, Shaq Barrett, Levante David, Devin White, JPP, Vita Vea, and Dominican Sue. I mean, that's a really great defensive front. The only issues for them right now are the offensive line, the secondary, maybe the running back position as well. But you got 2 really good tight ends. You got 2 really good receivers. I think that's a very good team right now. I think could actually win that division. So,
really, wow,
yeah, I think they're that good.
Beating out the Saints in the NFC South there. I have a question. Does Tom Brady throw 30 touchdowns this year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Tom Brady throws 27 touchdowns at least.
Wow. Bold predictions here during our power rankings. All right. I love it. Number 7, I put my hometown. I put the Eagles here. A little high for sure because I'm biased. I think I look at them last year and I look at what Carson Wentz was able to do with what he had on offense around him, having practice squad guys as his top 3 receivers, excluding Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert at the tight end position, and purely looking at wide receivers. Able to guide them to a division crown and playoff game. I look back at that. I think the Eagles win that game if Carson Wentz stays in and Jadeveon Clowney gets away with one there. But they've only gotten better this offseason. Obviously, yes, they're losing Malcolm Jenkins and losing Jason Peters, but those are all aging veterans who were asking for too much money. So. And I think they have solid plug-in plans. They're moving Jalen Mills to safety to kind of take on Malcolm Jenkins' role. Andre Dillard will now be the new starting left tackle, and they were high on him. They traded up for him to grab him last year in the draft. Javon Hargrave and Darius Slay got added in that free agency period. So I see them as a team that can definitely take the next step. And then if they really hit on this very talented draft, which is talented and deep at the positions they need. I think all the stars are in line here for the Eagles to be able to make a big jump. So I'm high on them for this season. Yeah. Big expectations.
I do think Philadelphia will win their division pretty easily. I think Philly's going to win that division. And the team I have at number 7 is the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Rodgers is always a good, efficient quarterback in terms of his touchdown to interception ratio. But I don't think we saw the MVP level of Aaron Rodgers last year. I think he's going to start sliding down a little bit. They don't have a great receiving core right now. The offensive line is decent, but not great. And defense kind of is in a similar spot. I like the secondary a lot, and I like their pass rush, but I think there's still some holes. And when I look at Green Bay, I just don't see a Super Bowl winning team. So for me, they're a cut below kind of the real Super Bowl contenders. I'm leaving at number 7.
Yeah, that's a fair spot for them. I see them as the bottom of the top there, and on my list. So I agree with you. For number 6 coming up here, I have Seattle. I think they can be a very good team. They live and die by Russell Wilson, like a lot of teams do with their quarterback. I think if they could add some decent pieces in this draft here, they'll take an even bigger step forward and can even be pushed into the top 5 or maybe the top 3. Just because they're a very talented team. Offensive line is still questionable. And the running back position, I think, needs to be solidified because they had a lot of injuries last year. They had to bring Marshawn Lynch back. But if they can really solidify their offensive line and their running back position, I see them taking a bigger step here into this season.
Yeah, at 6, I've got the Tennessee Titans because I think the Titans are still going to be competitive next year, especially in their division with there's so much uncertainty with the Colts and Houston right now. So I think Tennessee will be at number 6. I like what they've done. They've got Vic Beasley in free agency. They've got some guys who are still developing on the defensive side of the ball, like Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry. So I like what they've done. Even if they lost some guys, I still think they're going to be a competitive team. So I'm going to leave them at number 6 for now. And my number 5 is the Seattle Seahawks, just because of Russell Wilson. I think Wilson plays winning football. He knows exactly what he needs to do, whether Pete Carroll does or not. I don't think that's relevant. So I think Wilson knows what he's doing. I think he's got good receivers right now to help him out. He's got one good offensive lineman. That's about it. But he's got some pieces. The defense isn't terrible. It's not great either. But I think Russell Wilson's just the kind of guy who can put a team on his shoulders and play MVP football and drag them to 10 or 11 wins. So.
Yeah, all good points. At my number 5, I think we flipped here. I put the Green Bay Packers here just because I never sleep on Aaron Rodgers. He's just kind of over the hump in his career, and he'll start going down these next couple of years, which is sad because I love watching him play. But I think they're good. They're good enough right now to be the same. And then in the draft, if they add a receiver, then they'll be even better. But until that happens, because these are pre-draft rankings, I'm gonna stick with Green Bay at number 5.
We got number 4.
4, I have New Orleans. I really do like the Saints. Drew Brees coming back is going to be big for them. He can still play at a high level, as we saw last year, if he stays healthy, which is a big if. But it's hard to sleep on Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. They added Emmanuel Sanders in free agency. I think they have a lot of good talent on that team. We'll see what Drew Brees plays like this upcoming season.
Yeah, I've got New Orleans at 4 as well because you look on paper, they're stacked. I mean, their offensive lines are very good. They're bringing Emmanuel Sanders into a receiving core that already has Michael Thomas. You've got Jared Cook at tight end, Kamara out of the backfield. Defensively, Sheldon Rackets, Cameron Jordan, Marcus Davenport, Kiko Alonso, Demario Davis, Norris Jenkins, who they brought in, Marcus Williams, and Malcolm Jenkins at safety, and also Marshall Lattimore. So you've got guys. You've got a lot of really good players there. So I think just based purely on talent, at least, they should be number 4 overall.
Yeah, and we'll see if they can break that curse come playoff time. How they can never something bad always going to happen to them. But
all right, so into the top 3, Mark. Who you got number 3?
Number 3, I put Baltimore. I as much as I loved Lamar Jackson last year and how electric he played, I think this is what I always say. I look at when quarterbacks have a good first year and everyone rides high on them, I see, okay, what happens the next year? And I look at quarterbacks like RG3, Cam, and other young guys like that. They got figured out their second year. So I think teams now will know how to game plan against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. We saw Tennessee game plan against them in their own stadium in the divisional round playoff there. So I think the Ravens are still very good. They obviously bolstered that defensive line, speaking of the playoff game, after Derrick Henry ran all over them. So they have good pieces on defense. That defense got even better. That offense, I think, will get better after the draft. But you look at Hollywood Brown should take a bigger step this year. I think Lamar Jackson will be pretty good still. And then Mark Ingram is still a very solid running back, and they have good pieces on their offensive line. I think Marshall Yanda is gone at this point, but they'll still be a pretty decent team. So,
yeah, at 3, I've got the 49ers. I have 49ers at 3 because there hasn't been a team that's repeated as NFC champion since the Seattle Seahawks, but then a transcendent defense. I don't think the 49ers have a good defense, but they don't have that caliber of a defense. I also think Jimmy Garoppolo is not Russell Wilson. Their running back core is not Marshawn Lynch. And Deebo Samuel is not Doug Baldwin. So for me, I think they're a very good team still. I think they're going to be very competitive, but I don't think they're going to repeat as NFC champions. I think they could actually lose their division to Seattle if they're not careful. It's still a very talented team. That's why I've got them ranked number 3. But I think there are shortcomings they can potentially end up falling off after losing in the Super Bowl. Something like what Atlanta did after they lost to New England. But
yeah, that'd be a shame. That'd be a shame. I have them as my number 2. Not just because they were the runner-up in the Super Bowl, but because I still think they have a talented defense. They did trade away DeForest Buckner to Indianapolis, but they got a second first-round pick out of it. So I think they can easily replace him, not to the same level, but maybe draft a guy and develop him because there's a pretty good defensive line in this draft coming up. But I think they're still going to be a solid team. Jimmy Garoppolo is questionable, but you look at they have a solid running back room with a big running back by committee there. Why Deebo Samuel is decent enough. They did lose Emmanuel Sanders, like we mentioned, to the Saints. But I still see San Francisco being competitive in the NFC, not only in the division, in the NFC as well. So,
yeah, I totally agree with you. I think they're still going to be competitive. I just think it's a question of how competitive. And then moving on to my number 2, I got Baltimore here. I think they've got a tremendous offensive line, even with the loss of Marshall Yanda. They still have a very good offensive line. And as a Steelers fan, I have a very healthy respect for the Baltimore Ravens. I think they're a very good team. I love John Harbaugh as a coach, even though I wish he was on any other team other than Baltimore. But yeah, Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, I got so many good pieces on offense. Mark Andrews. And defensively, they just added a lot of guys this offseason. You talk about Derek Wolfe from Denver, Plas Kemp from Jacksonville. It's a very good team. They got 2 of the best corners in the game with Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters. You also have Earl Thomas at safety, and you're bringing back Matt Judon on the franchise tag. So I think it's a very good team that's built around that defense to begin with. And you got Lamar Jackson, who's a dynamic playmaker in offense. So I think this team will be a good team regardless of how other teams scheme for them this coming year.
Yeah, I still see Baltimore being competitive, maybe taking a little bit of a step back, like I mentioned, just because teams start to figure out how to game plan against Lamar Jackson, but still competitive. And number 1, we're both in agreement, obviously. Yeah. The Kansas City Chiefs. My reasons being they really didn't lose that many starters since they won the Super Bowl in free agency, and Patrick Mahomes is only going to go up as much as I hate to admit it. I don't know why I don't like Patrick Mahomes. I just don't like Patrick Mahomes.
Because you like Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's probably it. But it's hard to not put Kansas City number 1 just because they didn't lose key pieces and they still have young guys that are only going to get better at their starting positions. So
yeah, I mean, I think the reason why they're here for me, it's pretty simple. I can cut down to maybe 6 players, and it's Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Frank Clark, Chris Jones, and Tyrann Mathieu. I think that alone, those 6 guys alone, are good enough, especially because Patrick Mahomes. I think those guys are good enough to put this team in number 1 overall, just because how it's built. It's got some very decent players on defense. Talk about guys like Chris Jones, who's one of the best defensive tackles in football. And Tyrann Mathieu just made the All-Decade team, so you've got some very good players in defense. And then offensively, you just got an unstoppable machine with Patrick Mahomes there. So it's ridiculous. So I think putting them at number 1 right now is the best way to go for now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. This is a pretty good list. I don't disagree with yours completely. I think you're too high on the Buccaneers, but we'll see how that plays out.
I don't think you're high enough, man. I think you're sleeping on Brady. I think Brady's going to catch you.
We'll see. We'll see how it happens. But
all right, but anyways, we're going to sign off here because I got to go do a podcast at 1, and I want to charge my computer back up because we're about halfway dead right now. So, all right, Mark, I appreciate you coming on, man. Hopefully talk to you soon. Just hit me up whenever you get time, and we'll be back with another episode hopefully this week, maybe not. We'll see. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys later.